Submitted 14-0. Is there an assembly action? Seeing none, calling to the floor. F15, testimony and support. Adolph?
Adolph Zubia, Fire CAC Chairman and Fire Life Safety Section. Stand by the reason statement, but just very short. I'll add this much. This thing's been needed to be updated for probably over a decade since we did the consolidation. Thank you.
Question.
Can't get away that quick, Adolph.
Over here, anticipated impact scenario. Define that for me, please.
I believe there's going to be situations and circumstances where each particular site's going to have a different kind of vehicle operations and those type of things where you're going to have to, as a code official, evaluate, i.e. whether you have tanker trucks are going to be the problem or whether you're going to have normal commercial vehicle, what I call normal traffic type vehicle. You're going to have to make that evaluation. If you have tank cars for military, I mean, there may be a situation where
thank you.
You can have a lot of variables.
Thank you.
Question,
Oh,
Adolph, Sarah. So if I've got this right, the intent from my reading your reason statement is 312.2, the posts, is to be the base upon which any, quote, performance is to be made.
If I understood the question, and if I may, Mr. Moderator, 312.2 would be more prescriptive. The 312.3 is more of a performance base. Is that what you're asking?
Well, no, I got that. It's the idea of if I'm going to create a performance design, what do I use as the basis against to establish my performance characteristics? It appeared that in the supporting statement, 312.2 is the basis for that.
Wait, I'll turn over to my consultant.
Counselor, could you help us?
The performance requirement is the anticipated impact scenario, and as the code official shall be permitted when approved. If you're not happy with it, you don't approve it.
So, okay, but why, all right, but don't I always have that option with alternative methods and materials in Chapter 1?
If you wait a minute, I'll answer it in testimony.
Ah, thank you.
Thank you. Further testimony and support. Mr. Shapiro.
Well, we got you, didn't we? Jeff Shapiro. And on this issue, I'm representing NPGA, and on NPGA's behalf, I actually spent 4 days at Southwest Research Institute conducting live tests with a bogey that was calibrated weight with different bumper heights hitting different types of bollards to determine bollard performance. And then we also actually hooked up cables to bollards in the same scenario to try to determine whether there was a correlation between 312.3 on the 12,000-pound 36-inch and what's in 312.2. And the answer is there was none. In fact, what would pass 312.3 could be failed in 312.2, so it didn't even meet the prescriptive requirements for posts. What the FCAC attempted to do with this was to create a alternative that doesn't go under alternative methods and materials, because there are many, many things in that section that are irrelevant to a bollard. There's not really a fire safety aspect of a bollard. All the things that you list that you have to show equivalency, many of those are not related to this issue. The other thing is, in many cases, the bollard design is not necessarily just an alternative method that's equivalent. You may judge that in some circumstances, a visual barrier of a bollard that's simply bolted to a concrete curb is adequate to be a visual barrier to protect something in an area where the vehicle impact risk is low. On the other hand, you may have an area where you're subject to truck impact where you don't want a bollard under 312.2, because based on the testing, I can absolutely assure you it will not handle it. And I'll be publishing an article that has all this, and I've got neat side-by-side videos to demonstrate it all, but it's all very thoroughly documented. This is a good change.
Question.
Questions for you?
Jeff, if this was approved, hypothetically, and the commentary is being written, what type of factors would the code official need to consider besides velocity of the vehicle, the height of the bumper, or deflection, and so forth? What additional items should be included in that equation?
The original version of this had a laundry list. We were told we don't like laundry lists in the code, so we took it out. We don't have an annex like NFPA, although 58 has this in an annex that provides that. But you have a choice. You can have a laundry list or not. And the committee decided we didn't want that. We felt like it would be up to the designer to demonstrate that it's acceptable and outline those things that you should consider. And if you approve it, that was adequate, and if you don't, it wasn't.
Okay.
Question. Jeff, I think the question is intended for the purpose of helping with designing the commentary. So if you can give some of those parameters, it would help with designing the commentary.
Okay. Bill and I will have a drink later. I don't want to take the committee's time for it, but I'm certainly happy to provide the original draft.
That's not a point in discussion here at this point.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. Further testimony and support? Opposition? Ed?
Ed Burkle, Fire Marshal, Melville, Fire District, St. Louis. Little history lesson. Back last century, whenever we drafted the IFC, if you were to chase down this section, you'll find my fingerprints all over it. We took the prescriptive requirements out of the UFC. The performance requirements came out of BOCA. We had to do some changes because the prescriptive required 36-inch height. The BOCA requirements were 30 inches in height, and we just pulled it in. I have some mild opposition to this in that what is being proposed looks an awful lot like what we should allow based on F104.9, but in discussions with Jeff, he's indicated that he's aware of one state and one major jurisdiction that will not give an alternate materials approval unless you have an ICC-ES report, which would make it problematic. So yes, it looks like it should be alternate materials and methods, but if it goes, that's fine.
Further opposition? Ann?
Ann Von Willer, speaking for myself, excuse me, I've only got 50 years experience in the construction industry, but I'm a little confused. Bollard isn't defined, post isn't defined. When I read the requirements for a post, it sounds a whole lot like a bollard to me. And what are the other barriers? I mean, I just find this completely flawed. Who in the world is going to know what he's talking about, other barriers? And if the tests are on bollards, they sound a lot like posts. I'm sorry, it's just super confusing.
Thank you. Further opposition? Rebuttal and support? Jeff?
Please don't throw all of this good work out over the confusion between the term bollard or post. You can pick one or the other. Bollards are commonly thought of as the large planter kind of things or spheres that you see. Posts are a piece of steel filled with concrete. If you want to accept it, you accept it. It's written as a performance alternative, but it doesn't get into all the other things that alternative methods and materials engage. And you're not going to be able to go get an ICC-ES report on a post or a bollard. And as Ed indicated, there are places that say we will not look at an alternative method unless you have an ICC-ES report to back it up. So I would just encourage you, this is very well founded. The other point that I'll make, if you read the reason, when I researched this and actually found the original BOCA code change proposal that justified the 12,000 pounds, there was a math error. It should have been 6,000.
Thank you. Further rebuttal? Re-rebuttal? Seeing none. Mr. Chairman, it's yours.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Committee, we need a motion on F15.
A motion that we approve as submitted.
Second.
I have approved as submitted with the second. Comments?
I just find that this methodology is more prescriptive and more clear.
Thank you, Patrick. Howard?
I also saw some of the results of the research that was done at Southwest Research, and I think having a more performance-based approach versus the 12,000-pound applied 36 inches. I mean, that's very subjective depending whether you have solid ground or sandy soil or something. So this is, I think, a vast improvement. Thank you.
Thank you. Angie, did you?
Yes, I just wanted to add, I originally didn't like this proposal until I had one that I had to approve. And recently, in a parking ramp, that made it very difficult to apply the prescriptive code.
Okay, I have as submitted. Any additional comments? Ed, sorry.
Just one real quick comment. I heard some discussion about posts versus barriers and what's a barrier. The barrier term is already in the code. All we're doing is taking prescriptive and making it performance-based, which I think is a good idea.
Thank you. Any additional comments? The question before the committee for F15 is as submitted. Those in favor of as submitted, please raise your hand. Thank you. Those opposed? F15 has been approved as submitted, 14-0.
F15 has been recommended for approval as submitted, 14-0. Is there an assembly action? Seeing none, letting folks know this will be the last